Oh my god, what's happening to Tesla stock? As you can see, the stock is down more than 3% for today. And what is really happening in the stock? This is what we're going to be discussing. So welcome to today's video. We're going to be discussing Tesla's Q4 results and how it really affects the earnings and how it's going to affect the share price in the long term. So make sure you smash this like button because it really helps the channel grow larger. So let's begin. I'm going to show the highlighter right here. So first of all, we're going to be discussing the quarter results. So you can go to the investor relationship page from the Tesla, the official website. And as you can see, we have Q4, and then we're going to be discussing Q4 2025 update, including most of the metrics here. I'm going to just go into the primary outcomes that we've seen right here. I'm not going to go into the secondary and small stuff. I'm going to be, just developing and more focusing on the things that are more useful as an investor. So first of all, from the quarter, Tesla reported a revenue of 25 billion versus 25.1, estimated a drop of 2.4% from a year earlier. Now, as you can see right here, so total automotive revenues, I'm not going to go talk about that specifically. First, I will talk about the total revenue. So now let's look at the quarter revenue for Q4 2025. As you can see, it was 24 billion point 9, and the last year it was 25.7 billion. Now, as you can see, over the last 4 quarters, almost there is 100 billion revenues for Tesla. However, overall, as you can see that, year on year, there was a slight decrease. But if you look at quarter 3, the revenue was, up year over year. However, the major cause of this decrease year over year is because a lot of that expected Q4 vehicle sales was kind of, pulled back, especially in the United States, because of the expiring tax credit in the United States. And that's why, as we can see in Q3 2025, we can see there was a very large, nice increase in Q3 2025 sales. And that's why Q4 was relatively, just a bit more soft, because those deliveries and productions and revenue was kind of pulled back into Q3 because of the expiring tax credit. And that is for the overall revenues. Now, as you can see, for the margins, it's been kind of, improving in a very nice fashion. It was 16.3%, extending to 18% in Q3, and now in Q4 it was 20%. And that is really nice to see for the gross margins to be kind of improving. Now, if you look at the energy storage business specifically, as you can see, it's been steadily increasing in a very nice fashion, year over year, up 25%, with a specifically 3.8 billion coming from total energy generation in just one quarter out of 17.6 billion for automotive. Now, as you can see, 3.4 out of total 25 billion revenue, that is almost, that's not a bad chunk of the total revenue, really coming from energy generation and storage revenue. And this is really nice to see kind of Tesla earning real revenue and real profits from other businesses other than the auto business. Of course, I'm not the one that are gonna tell you that, Tesla is just is an automotive company. Of course, I don't believe that. You've seen my prior videos with Tesla. I believe that Tesla stock is really headed to the moon, and I'm gonna tell you more on that in the future videos. But as you can see, Tesla really is positioned in a very nice manner, not just in the vehicles and the energy business, but it's also in the FSD, Robotaxi, and also Optimus, which we're going to be discussing in just a moment. So now back to our prepared remarks here. Now, as you can see, Tesla posted an adjusted earnings per share 0.5 versus 0.45 expected, which is really nice, and operating income 1.4 versus expected 1.3 billion, and the gross margins, as we talked about that. Now, additionally, the company had also stated that they want to stop production of the Model S and Model Y. Model S and Model X, of course, these old models. Of course, I personally thought that, that is not the best movement, although I believe that the management are those that are, capable of doing the right decision. They have more information and more things to consider before making the actual decision. So I trust the management, and that's why I'm fully invested in Tesla myself. Of course, you have to do your own research on that, but that's, my own belief. Now, the kind of the lines that were going for the Model S and Model X and now have transitioned actually to kind of, being able to produce Optimus, which is that robot that is expected to do many of the tasks in the future. So they are targeting a 1 million units in that production line instead of the Tesla Model S and Model X. We know that Tesla's Model X's and Model S, so S and X, are kind of just producing and delivering around 10 to 13,000 cars, which is, not a very high number. We know that Model 3 and Model Y are delivering way more than that. So just 10 to 13,000 for Model S and Model X is really small, and that's why maybe I think that they kind of switched gears towards that production for the Optimus. Of course, in my opinion, Optimus could have been developed in some other new line, and Model S and X could still do some nice figures there, although they are small. But it's kind of nice to have kind of different varieties of different models for the company overall. However, that's what the management have seen to be fit. Now, if we go back and walk and talk about this, so Optimus strategy and production plans. Now, really, as you can see, we've talked about that in a prior video. But as you can see, humanoid robots in 2025, they're coming from many companies. One of those is Tesla, which is called Optimus. We have Unitree, so Unitree H1 robot. We also have from Boston Dynamics. I believe most of us here have really seen a couple of videos from Atlas specifically. And we also have Apollo, Digit, and many others. Those are mainly coming, mainly excluding Chinese products. And of course, China is really developing really nice technology. And also Elon Musk himself, during the quarter results, he was saying that most of the competition is expected to come from China. And I'm gonna go through his specific words in just a moment in a Word file that I have prepared right here. I'm going to tell you, the kind of the highlights that I've taken myself during the quarter results. Now, as we can see here, so the lines of S and X will be changed to make Optimus, and this decision reflects a strategic reallocation of manufacturing resources, according to what I have been reading. Although I don't personally completely agree with that, but maybe they know better. Now, let me know what you guys think in that regard, specifically in the comments down below. Now, moreover, Tesla has said that they plan to unveil Optimus version 3 in Q1 of this year. So just imagine, we are already in Feb 2026. And as you can see, within, just the coming 1 or 2 months, we are expected to see Optimus version 3, which is really nice, with the start of the production before the end of 2026. And that is really phenomenal to see if really they make up their promises. Now, of course, we all know that Elon Musk has been notoriously kind of, coming late on his promises, although there are many of the promises that he has made, but people are not really talking about them. And maybe in the future, I'm going to talk about them. However, we can see, we can hope that they are able to do that by the end of 2026, and an eventual planned capacity of 1 million robots per year. And by the way, I have a very nice file, and let me know if you guys want this file. I can send that to you. But as you can see, I have kind of all the announced plans from Tesla, because Elon Musk and the team announced a lot of really plans. Some of them they kind of deliver on them, and some of them don't. So what I do is I kind of put every official announcement that they have made, and the reference to that, and when they have made it, and what they actually want to succeed with, and on what date. And then I go back on during that date if they have successfully achieved that on that time, or they have not, and what are the circumstances at that time. Now, as you can see here, total car sales announcements. This is battery announced plans, sales location, new affordable model, and CyberCab, Tesla Semi, Roadster. Of course, I'm not putting any promise in Roadster, but that's one thing to keep an eye on. And then Optimus, we'll see if Tesla and Elon Musk are able to do that. And then Dojo, of course, unfortunately, the project was canceled in August 2025. I was really sad on that. And then the batteries, of course. Now, all right, so now if we go back to what I've prepared right here. So Tesla said that it plans to unveil in Q1. We've talked about that. And Optimus is positioned as a long-term driver of revenue and automation for Tesla. Now, if we really go back to so the filings right here. Now, as you can see, I'm going to be kind of, going through. So yeah, so let's look at this. So Model 3 and Model Y production in Q4 2025, 422,000 cars as compared to 436. And that is production, not deliveries. Of course, we know that Tesla's production kind of really matches the deliveries in a very tight manner. Now we've seen here that 406, 422, they are kind of, more or less the same. Now, as we can see, compared to the last year, that it's down by 3%. However, the other models production is down, as we can see, 48%. And this is really, really bad. And maybe that's one of the reasons why Tesla's Model S and Model X are kind of, being withdrawn from the market. Now, this unfortunately also includes Cybertruck, which is kind of, in my opinion, it was a disastrous product. Although maybe people say that they like how the product looks, it is really, really strong, a strong vehicle. Of course, we all know that. However, unfortunately, I don't know why, but the vehicle sales are not high enough to kind of, lead to meaningful revenues and profit. And let me know what you guys think actually for the Cybertruck. Why is it kind of a flop? I believe it's a flop. So let me know why you think that this is a flop. And now we have active FSD subscriptions in millions, and this is really, really, really nice to see. Now we have 1.1 million subscribers. I'm going to talk about the actual numbers in just a moment, and that is up by 38% year on year. And that is really nice to see because, as we have said, Tesla is kind of transitioning towards services and higher margin stuff, including FSD, Robotaxi, and Optimus, and a lot more services as compared to just vehicles, who by itself kind of have a lower gross margin. Now, if we move also on the other side, as you can see here, so this is a figure that I always like to see. So this is the installed annual manufacturing capacity. And so in California, we have 550,000, Model S and X, 100,000. Shanghai, we have 3 and Y, almost 1 million. And Model Y in Berlin is 375,000. I remember in one day they promised that the Model Y production at Berlin, or the total production at Berlin, should almost reach 1 million vehicles. I don't know why they have not really made that promise yet. It's kind of, being delayed in my personal opinion. Maybe they will be able to achieve that with the CyberCab. We're going to have to see. Now, Texas, of course, now they have added the CyberCab, which is really nice. They have added that it's in the tooling phase, Tesla Semi in the Nevada factory, and then to be determined for the Roadster. Now, they have added this really nice two places, the energy production and storage, and the Robotaxi. Now, the robotics. So the robotics, specifically Optimus in California, is under construction right now, and we have seen these different factories for the Megapack, Powerwall, and in California, Nevada, Shanghai, and in Texas. And that is really nice. So 40 gigawatts, 6 gigawatts, and 40 gigawatts. So Shanghai and California are really doing phenomenal job in the production phase. Now, there are many other details that I'm not going to go into all of that, but this is also Tesla's AI training ramp up, as you can see, over time on the x-axis, and then on the y-axis, the amount of miles that we have. And as you can see, it's kind of, just exponentially increasing over time. Now, the same is happening with FSD miles on version 12 and beyond. As you can see, it's kind of skyrocketing, and version 11 has almost plateaued since 2023, and we're seeing, version 3 and version 5 at these times. Now, if we go back right here, now we've said that, preparations continue in North America for the production ramps of Tesla Semi and CyberCab. Tesla's FSD subscriptions doubled in 2025, as we've just seen, and is still pursuing regulatory approval in China and Europe, and that is for FSD specifically, not Robotaxi. Do not mix both, okay? So the major focus on the conference call will be the Robotaxi rollout across the US, including the removal of safety drivers across its fleet. And now, fortunately, we have heard from last week that Musk has announced that Tesla removed the safety driver from its Austin, Texas fleet, and have also removed not just, that safety driver, but also a kind of like a pursuit car. So Tesla cars and the Robotaxi in Texas in Austin are able to drive themselves now completely autonomously, just like that with Waymo. Of course, I'm not comparing that to Waymo because Waymo, in my opinion, is way inferior in terms of, the principles as compared to Tesla's Robotaxi. However, in terms of new metro areas, Tesla has noted that Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and Las Vegas would be targeted for Robotaxi service in the first half of 2026. I really hope that they are able to achieve on that, because last year, if you guys remember, so I'm going to go back to the file that I have seen, that I have created right here. Now, Robotaxi announced plans. Now, as you can see, as of November 6, 2025, per Tesla shareholder meeting, Robotaxi service next is Miami, Dallas, Phoenix, and Las Vegas, and unfortunately, not many of that have been really met. And according to the annual shareholder meeting in November 2025, in a month or two, i.e. December or Jan 2026, allowed to text and drive while on FSD. I haven't really seen that, unfortunately. Let me know if you guys have seen any evidence on this specific matter. Now, if we go back and kind of just zoom in on the details. Now, if you're not interested in the details of the Tesla's Q4 2025 earnings, then you don't have to attend the rest of the video. However, if you are an investor or a potential investor of Tesla stock, then you should be hearing these type of things, because this is just the highlights and not the whole, 1 hour thing with the question and answer session. Now, so this year, 2026, will be a very big CapEx year for Tesla and major investments in batteries and the entire supply chain of batteries. And we are also going to be significant manufacturers of solar cells, and we are making massive investments in AI chips, per Elon Musk in the introductory comments. Now, then they move on to say that it's time to bring the Model S and X programs to an end with an honorable discharge, and will obviously continue to support these models as long as people have these vehicles. Now, we are going to make the Model X and X production space in Fremont factory and convert to Optimus, as we've seen, and we are able to do our first rides with no safety monitor in Austin, as we've just mentioned, and there are just cars with no people in them and no one following the car in Austin. Now, additionally, you will see the amount of autonomy increase dramatically on a monthly basis, and this is really essential to see on a monthly basis when you're kind of following on Tesla and the Tesla stock. There will be also an opportunity, something we have talked about in the long term, for existing owners of Tesla, and this is really nice. If you guys have Tesla cars, let me know in the comments down below, because you will be able, if you are an eligible customer, to add or subtract your car to the fleet of autonomy and Robotaxi, and kind of like, how Airbnb works, where you can add or subtract the house to Airbnb inventory. Now, that is really nice to hear. And I would expect to have fully autonomous vehicles in probably somewhere between a quarter and a half in the United States by the end of the year. I'm going to go back on that. We expect to have fully autonomous vehicles in probably somewhere between a quarter and a half to the United States by the end of the year, pending regulatory approval, and that is a big if. Now, I hope it really goes well. Now, a big factor would be if there is some kind of federal preemption, for autonomous vehicles. In the absence of that, you have to go on a city-by-city and a state-by-state basis. And nonetheless, even if a city-by-city basis, we expect to be in dozens of major cities by the end of 2026. Now, for Optimus, the normal S-curve of manufacturing ramp will be kind of longer for Optimus than it is for the products that have at least some portion of an existing supply chain, because as we have seen and heard from Elon Musk in Q3 and in Q2 2025 earnings call, he has said that Optimus products are kind of coming from zero, so you don't have an established kind of a supply chain, so you will have to build the supply chain almost from scratch, which means it really takes more time. If you're building 100 particles from scratch, even if just 99 of that are kind of doing well and you have secured them, if you have not secured only 1 out of 100, it will delay the whole 100, which means for Optimus, the production might be delayed, although they are promising for that to be in 2020 by the end of 2026. And I think, per Elon Musk, I think long-term Optimus will have a very significant impact on not just Tesla earnings, but also on the US GDP, which is more than 20 trillion US dollars. Now, if this will have a significant impact on the GDP, then that means we're talking about billions, hundreds of billions at least, okay? Now, FSD adoption has continued to improve in the quarter, reaching 1.1 million, as we've just said. Paid customers globally, of course, these are paying on a monthly basis. Of these, 70% were upfront purchases, and that is because initially Tesla had that upfront cost to kind of purchase the FSD, and then now over time they are transitioning towards a monthly subscription based instead of an upfront cost. And now the monthly subscription is the only method that you can go for FSD in the United States. It is important to note that at the beginning of the quarter we are transitioning to fully subscription based model for FSD. Therefore, additions to this figure will be primarily via subscription model. Okay. Now, we know that total US vehicles fleet by the end of 2026 will be, in 2025, sorry for that, around 9 million, i.e. 12% take rate for FSD, which includes vehicles before the FSD or AI hardware, okay? Also, this includes countries that do not have FSD. So the adoption percent is definitely much higher than that. So maybe in the US around 20 to 25% in my personal opinion. But the kind of announced plan is, number is around 12%. Of course, because of this 1.1 million that we have just seen. However, if you divide that and then exclude those vehicles that are sold in other countries other than the US, we can see that the number reaches around 20 to 25%. Now, this year, 2026, will be a huge investment from the CapEx. They will spend in excess of 20 billion, and this also excludes things that are not yet accounted for that might come during this year. And they are paying for 6 factories, namely the lithium iron phosphate factories, the CyberCab, Semi, and the new Megafac factory, and the Optimus factory. And that is, although 20 billion, and they make around actually what they have in cash is around $45 billion, and if they're spending 20 billion, then they have still an excess of 20 billion that they are able to keep. So that is really nice to have, that they have a very nice cushion right there. Now, over 90% of vehicle miles traveled are within 2 or fewer passengers, so 2 passenger seater cars. That's why these make sense, and that's why CyberCab is expected to have 2-seater in the vehicle itself. And we expect to start production in April, which we have seen in the prior, and it's an S-curve rate, so it's kind of starts slow, and then all of a sudden you can see that the numbers kind of increase very quickly. In my opinion, between 2 to 4 million vehicles annually is the peak, and then are plateauing at that time. Now, you would expect CyberCab to be used probably 50 or 60 hours a week instead of, the usual, which is around 10 hours, 10 or 11 hours a week that is driven by vehicles on an average. So 50 to 60, that's more than 5 times the kind of productivity that the car is expected to have. If you're expected to have 5 times productivity, then that means you're expected to have a lot more income from the vehicle that you are purchasing, okay? Or if you're not purchasing that, as a Tesla company or as a Tesla investor, you are able to get more money because they will be able to add that to the Robotaxi fleet. Now, typically people might drive their car for an hour and a half on average, so that's like 10 hours a day. Now, a question on Cybertruck is to change its aesthetics to normal looking truck. However, unfortunately, Elon Musk has basically said no in a kind of dodgy manner. Now, maybe if they were able to do that, it's like a normal aesthetic looking truck, maybe the Cybertruck revenue and the sales would increase, but no one is sure. Elon Musk has said, unfortunately, that they don't want to go for that, basically, which in my own opinion, maybe that's not the right way to go for the Cybertruck, because the vehicle sales are really, really low and they are not making a lot of money for us as investors. Now, in terms of of taxi vehicles carrying paid customers, I think we're well over 500 at this point between the Bay Area and Austin. I thought the number here was 100 or 200. I was trying to calculate that, by the way, before the Q4 2025 results. However, it was well above 500. That's really nice to see, and this will probably double every month in this type of thing. It's an exponential curve. And then finally in the Q&A session, Elon Musk has said, well, I do think that by far the biggest competition for humanoid robots will be from China, as I told you guys at the beginning of the video. Now, China is incredible at scaling and manufacturing, and actually quite good at AI as well. I always think people sort of outside of China kind of underestimate China. China is next level, guys. Just imagine what Elon Musk has been really saying on China. So let me know if you guys think Tesla and China will be competing against each other and who will win in the humanoid robots space. And let me know what you guys think in the comments down below if you like this type of videos, and I'll see you in our next one.